joining us today. My name's Hayley Jarvis. I'm the Head of Physical Activity at Mind. So I've been in Codes just over 3.5 years working on all of our sports and physical activity work from grassroots. So I have a huge remit, so we deliver programs to get people active, to support their mental health and well-being, so when they've become unwell as a way to help their recovery, all the way through to supporting elite sport, working with UK Sports, the English Institute for Sport, Players Associations, and everything really in between. So hopefully today I can just share some of our learning and a little bit of information about the work we do at Mind, and hopefully give you some tools and ideas that you can put into practice in your own environment. Okay, bear with me. Brilliant. So I think we've already talked about microphones and video, so if you could mute yourself if you haven't already, that'd be really helpful. And there will be time to ask questions at the end, so by all means you can unmute yourself, you can have a chat. Engagement's really important to me, so throughout I will ask for you to type out answers in your chat box, just to check that you're still there. And if you've got questions, please do ask. One thing to flag with that chat function, it pops up really quickly on my screen. So if we can try and keep it quite short, I'll do my best to answer as we go and ask questions at the end. Just also to say, this really is your session, so note down those questions, talk to me at the end. We want you to get the most out of this. And also in terms of supporting your own mental well-being. So we know when we start talking about mental health, mental well-being, sometimes it can provoke memories or feelings in us. And if you need to take any time out, go grab yourself a cup of tea or a glass of water, by all means do that. It's really important that we all look after ourselves as well. Okay. So in terms of what we're going to cover during the next hour and a half or so, we're going to look at the common perceptions and misconceptions about mental health and how that may play out in a swimming environment. We're going to look at the barriers that people with mental health problems can experience in swimming, and we've done lots of insight into this. We're also going to talk about stigma and discrimination, so they're used quite a lot, particularly in the mental health context. So we're going to explore what they mean and how we can get rid of them, and importantly look at practical things that you can do to create that positive environment. And at the end of the session, really look at where you can signpost people to if they need help and support. It's fair to say we are not expecting you to be mental health experts at the end of this, and certainly it's you know, if you have more, if you're really interested, we definitely encourage you to access other training. There's lots out there. Also very aware, lots of people have lots of experience already, so it's really difficult trying to get the level at this. So if you've got examples that you want to share during the session, then please do so. Nobody's an expert on everything, so I think it's really important that we share and we learn from one another. Okay. So we're Mind, the mental health charity, so we're here to support anyone that has a mental health problem. So they have somewhere to turn to for advice and support. So nationally, we provide information services. We have an info line, a plethora of info on our website about mental health problems and how to access self-support and what support's out there available, the legal advice service. We campaign for increased awareness, but also better access to services and do a lot of lobbying work with government. Locally, we have a network of over 130 local minds across England. They are all independent charities, but deliver services in the heart of community, ranging from peer support, so where people use their own experiences to support one another, sports, arts, therapy, information services, talk services, counselling, really varied across the country. So if you're not engaged with your local minds, certainly worth this presentation, having a look at where they are and making instructions to them if you're interested in working with them further. So why am I so interested in all of this? I've worked in physical activity for the last 16 years, background in inclusion, I have my own mental health problems. So since a teenager, I've struggled with anxiety and depression, and sort of been through a lot of support. I have taken medication. I have talking therapy. And for me, physical activity is something that's really helped me to manage my own mental health. Also, I have really close experience through friends and very close family members. So close family members with diagnosis of bipolar, with schizophrenia, and supporting them and seeing how their mental health problems sort of impacted on themselves, but also the family. So supporting when they're well and they're unwell. So I've kind of seen it from both sides, as well as being a volunteer for Deadly Mind and leading a running group. So I'm a runner for Jolly Jogger. So hopefully some of that personal experience as well will be useful during this presentation. Okay. Okay, so why are we working together at Minds and Swim England? So many of you might be aware, I'm just going to keep it light, that mental wellbeing is one of the defined outcomes for the Department for Culture, Media and Sport and the Sport England strategies. And that was a groundbreaking moment really in 2015 when mental wellbeing was really recognised as being something that physical activity has a real impact on. Traditionally, people think about getting active for their physical health or their waistline. Actually, it makes us feel better too, and can help us manage stress and help us sleep better. So this is a really important moment for us, and a real sort of pride. Mine has been doing some work in this space around getting people active for their mental health and some research into elite sport. And since this time, we've started working with many more sports organisations to really understand how physical activity helps people's mental well-being. So at Mind, we've got a really clear vision that we believe it should be used to build resilience. So being active can actually reduce your risk of depression by up to 30%. So I think that's huge. But it can also help you when you're unwell on that road to recovery, as well as tackling stigma, particularly by seeing people talking out about their mental health, whether they're sports stars and celebrities or general public like you and I talking about mental health. It just makes it okay not to be okay. And we've got a big network, as have Swim England, and I think it's a really good thing to do that we can work together. Okay. So let's look at what is mental health and mental well-being. So I just really want to reiterate that this is not a replacement for going on a course such as, there's lots of courses out there. So there's mental health first aid. At Mind, we run a mental health awareness for sport and physical activity training course. Early in the new year, we will be rolling an online e-learning course. So this isn't a replacement. We're not looking to make you an expert in this time at all, but it's just to increase your awareness and hopefully give you a flavour of the topic. Okay, so definition of mental health that we're going to use for this presentation is the World Health Organization's definition. So it's defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realises his or her own potential. I think that's key. Can cope with the normal stresses of life, work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So really it's that spectrum from positive mental health to mental illness or being mentally unwell. So we all have mental health, just like we all have physical health. Some of us sometimes have mental health problems, and we will move up and down that spectrum, and that can change sometimes minute to minute, hour to hour, but week to week and year to year. So I think it's important to recognise it's something that we all have, and I think as a society we've all started to talk about it a little bit more. I did just see a question in that chat box, and I think you've been reading my notes, because I was just going to ask you, or just to take a moment to think, if this is what mental health is, then what is mental well-being? How would you define it? What's mental well-being? If you could just write your answers in your chat box, and I'll just give you a moment to have a think about that. And hopefully I'll get some engagement that you're all still there, because it really isn't great for my anxiety when I think I'm talking to myself. So brilliant, taking the time to look after yourself, yes, looking after your well-being, fantastic. Anyone else? prioritising your own needs. I think that's very important and something that often many of us struggle with. Yep. Talking about your feelings, fantastic. Any
Hayley, can I just jump in there a second, because I've had a couple come directly to me. So
okay.
if you put a response and it goes directly to Learn to Swim, can you put it either so everybody can see it or so Hayley can see it, not so that Learn to Swim can see it?
Thank you. Slight technical error there. I think we're all getting used to this new technology. Fantastic. Okay, so some really good stuff there, and it is this. It's about your sleep, yeah. It's more of a holistic view, and sometimes these terms are used interchangeably. So it's mental well-being, coping with life, fantastic there, Beck. It is about this wider set of feelings, thoughts, and emotions that influence our day-to-day behaviour. It's about all of these things, about our wider health and well-being, around being confident and valuing it, accepting ourselves, really judging yourself on realistic and reasonable standards, and I think that can be quite a challenge for lots of people, that we'd be very kind to a friend or to a colleague, but have probably really hard expectations of ourselves. Around our emotions, so a few people said in the chat box around feelings, and it is around a broad range of emotions and feelings. So sometimes when we ask this question, people will say, it's about being happy. Well, it's about being happy, sad, disappointed, ecstatic, a little bit bored. It's about all of those emotions, about feeling them, understanding them, and expressing them. And importantly, it's around our relationships as well, about being able to maintain and positively build on relationships with people around us, as well as the work, life, our wider health determinants, so things like our eating, our sleeping, all of those things. So it's just a broader definition. And I think it's really important that we look at the two definitions, because they are often used interchangeably, and it is really important that we do really sort of take the time to look after ourselves, and we take our mental health and well-being and treat it in the same regard as our physical health and well-being too, and those impact on one another. Okay. So with what mental health is, we've talked a little bit about mental well-being. So what are mental health problems? So mental health problems affect the way we think, feel, and can happen to absolutely anyone, any of us, at any time in our lives. Sometimes as a result of a situation or a crisis, or sometimes for absolutely no particular reason. They just simply happen. And they also have this range, so from mild, moderate, through to severe and long. And even within each diagnosis, there's that spectrum as well. So it is really, really complicated as well. So when we talk about common mental health problems, we're talking about things like anxiety and depression, and less common things like bipolar disorder, eating disorders, schizophrenia, psychosis. Now, I'm aware those are big labels, and sadly we don't have time to go into every single one of them today, but we will try to issue to you lots of information on our website as well, and video links as well. So mental health problems is when things happen over a period of time. So sometimes we have this vocabulary where people will say, you know, something's happened with my boyfriend or something, or I'm feeling a bit depressed. Maybe they've had a bad day or two, but it's when bad days turn into bad weeks and months. Mental health problems are normally diagnosed after a period of at least 2 weeks or more. Often doctors will ask you to come back, and they'll do what they call active monitoring, that they're sort of checking in how you are during that time period. So this language of mental health can be helpful, but also it can sometimes downplay actually how someone's feeling as well. So if mental health problems affect how we think, feel or behave, how might someone behave in a swimming setting if they're struggling with their mental health? So just want to pop in the chat box any thoughts. What behaviours might you see if someone that you're working with is starting to struggle with their mental health? What might you notice? angry, cheerful, unpredictable, changing in attitude, appearance, acting out of character, don't come in at all, yep, they just disappear, yep, they're short-tempered, the body language, yep, low opinion, flapping. Sounds like you guys have got quite a lot of experience of this. Fantastic. Not turning up, not engaging. Yeah, so there's a change in their usual behaviour. So mental health problems affect the way you think, feel and behave. Obviously it can be very hard to see how someone's feeling and think it, but what you do notice is those behaviours. So here are just a few of the common ones, and I think you've covered lots of those already. Things like neglecting self-care, changes in the work output or motivation. So I'm aware you're probably all coming from different spectrums of learn to swim, from different ages, different levels of ability you're working with. But when you're starting to see sort of that change in performance as well, the physical appearance, perhaps more so with adults, the changing in habit, and colleagues that you work with as well. So perhaps, eating too much, too little, smoking more than they used to, going out for, having to have a drink at the end of the day, and lots of books. You might also want to talk to you and how they're feeling as well. I think it is really important though that we don't make assumptions. Anything could have happened, could have had a bad day, they could have overslept as I did this morning, so I'm looking a little bit dishevelled today. Things sometimes just happen as well. So I think it's important as coaches and instructors, we get to know the people that we're working with and our colleagues and spot what's different, so what's out of ordinary with their behaviour. So it's about not making assumptions and really sort of it being okay to have a conversation with someone about how they're feeling. Okay, so I want to just play a quick game of true or false. I'm going to read out a statement. I'll say it twice, and then if you could just pop in the chat box, you can just do a T for true and an F for false. Again, just to sort of challenge some of those perceptions and misconceptions. Okay, so we'll start with a statistic. So 1 out of 10 people will experience a mental health problem in any 1 year. I'll say that again. 1 out of 10 people will experience a mental health problem in any 1 year. Ooh, mixed bag there. True, false, 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 true, false. Any more? Fantastic. Okay, so it is in fact false. It's much higher than that. So the statistics from the Adult Psychiatry Morbidity Survey, don't worry, you don't have to remember that bit, is that actually 1 in 4 adults will experience a mental health problem in any 1 year. 1 in 4. So, that's quite a huge statistic, thinking that the number of us on this call, and I'm not asking you to disclose if you do have mental health problems or not, that's a significant number. And in fact, 1 in 10 young people experience mental health problems. So if you think about a class of 30, that could be 3 young people at one time. Okay, let's do a couple more. I feel confident talking to someone about their mental health. I feel confident talking to someone about their mental health. Yeah, true. Okay, so there's a mixed picture there of truths and false. There's no right or wrong with this one, actually. That's a bit of a trick answer, a trick question. But we know that many people feel apprehensive about talking about mental health. And what we want to do is help you to become a little bit more confident to have that conversation, just as you would with physical health. If you notice someone was looking physically unwell, or maybe they're under the weather with a cold, or carrying a physical injury, you might ask them how they're doing, and you wouldn't be expected to become a physio overnight or a brain surgeon for a headache or something. So we want to treat mental health in the same regard, but we know lots of people get really concerned that they're going to say or do the wrong thing. We've just launched a campaign with our colleagues at Time to Change, which is a campaign led by Mind and Rethink, called Ask Twice. because I think as Brits, we're preconditioned that we ask the question, are you okay? Or how are you? And there's one answer that we only ever give, and it's fine. I think for most people say, yep, fine. Actually, if you ask them again, you say, no, really, are you okay? You might get the honest answer. So there's actually quite a campaign about this at the moment. Okay, so we'll do a couple more. People with mental health problems are dangerous. People with mental health problems are dangerous. False, 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 false. If we're in a room, I'd get you to move around the room, but obviously I can't see you, so not all. Okay. Can be to themselves. Some really good points raised there. And ideally, I'd create a little bit of debate with this question. And it's correct, false. Having a mental health problem does not make you dangerous. Despite how media sometimes in the past has portrayed mental health problems, the most common mental health problems have no link to violent behaviour whatsoever. Actually, people with serious mental health problems are more likely to be the victim of violence or more likely to hurt themselves than anyone else. So we're thinking here about things like self-harm or suicide. So I think the world has moved a lot in the last few years in particular, but we still sometimes see those headlines, particularly on the tabloids, when something tragic happens and the person happens to have a mental health problem, and that can sort of instill a lot of fear around people. So it's really important that we raise awareness. Actually, people are more likely to hurt themselves than someone else. Okay, let's just do one more. Okay, I'll do another statistic. So 1 in 5 visits to the GP are mental health related. 1 in 5 visits to the GP are mental health related. True, false, false, true, true. Oh, it's a real mixed bag, this one. Okay, really mixed bag. So it is actually false. It's higher than that. So 1 in 3 visits to the GP are mental health related. 1 in 3 visits mental health related. And I think that's really interesting because quite often what we see is people will go to the GP perhaps with some physical health complaints. Sometimes it might be around chest pains, or it might be tummy troubles, or quite commonly neck and shoulder ache. And actually, when the GP sort of gets down to the root of the problem, it can in fact be a mental health problem. So this is one of the things that we campaign around mine quite heavily, particularly because mental health services are underfunded compared to physical health services, and it's sort of the growing crisis. So it's something that it's important to raise awareness of. Okay, so you'll be pleased to know you get a break from having to take part for a while. I just wanted to share a few statistics here. So these are a few that we talked about already. I just want to add a couple more. Sadly, every 2 hours, someone in England and Wales took their own life in 2016. So we know there's over 6,000 suicides every year. 75% of those are male. So that's why it's so important that we all start talking about mental health and making it okay not to be okay and to have that conversation. And the second one I want to draw your attention to is just below the number of antidepressants issued every year. So mental health problems are treated in lots of different ways. Medication is really important for lots and lots of people and can be life-saving. And I found, actually, for me, when I was on medication, it was life-saving. But one of the things we see there, so that's over 1 million prescriptions every single week. That's very, very high. And also, we know that physical activity, for some people, can be as effective as antidepressants, particularly for mild, moderate depression. So it's something that we raise awareness, and it's very important that we understand it doesn't solve it for everyone. We can't just go for a swim or go for a run that's going to make our lives better go away. But equally, understanding that medication is important for lots of people and also has lots of side effects as well. A couple of other stats I just really wanted to share with you. I know some of you will be working with young people, so 50% of common mental health problems, so we're talking there about anxiety and depression in particular, are first experienced by the age of 14. 50%. So there's a big spotlight on this at the moment and around training in schools in particular around mental health and sort of mental health literacy and vocabulary as well. And sort of many of the young people we work with are far more switched on to talking about how they're feeling than adults. So 50% of common mental health problems by the age of 14, 75% are experienced by the age of 24 as well. So often when people look back on their growing up, they then identify issues when they were younger. So addressing it early, I think, is really, really important. So as I mentioned, we don't have time to go into every mental health problem in detail here. And I think it's really important that there's so much overlap and it's so complicated. We don't need to be experts in the labels anyway. But when we send this around, here's the link to our website where you can access lots of information and you can hear people's stories firsthand. I think there's nothing more valuable than hearing from someone that's been through it themselves. But we're just going to cover a couple of the common mental health problems now. Looking at anxiety, it is something that we all experience from time to time, and it can be really helpful. And if you're preparing for an exam or a driving test, or you're getting married or something, those nervous feelings, the butterflies in your tummy, and the adrenaline can be quite normal and quite useful. However, when that's every day and it becomes overwhelming, and as we think about that definition, it starts to affect our day-to-day life, that is when it becomes a problem. So common physical sensations can be things like nausea, tummy troubles, tense muscles and headaches, breathing, that churning pit in your stomach, and it can also lead to panic attacks or anxiety attacks as well. So making people feel like they're losing control, maybe they can't feel their limbs, or they're going to faint or have a heart attack, or they start hyperventilating. So panic attacks can be experienced quite differently by different people. Psychological feelings, that feeling really tense or on edge, really sort of feeling the worst, your mind just feeling quite overwhelmed, and sort of thoughts, something happens and you can't let it go, you ruminate over it again and again, dwelling on things, not being able to sort of rest or concentrate. So we all sometimes experience some of those things, so you're probably sitting there thinking, oh, that happens to me, but really think back to that definition. If it's affecting our day-to-day life, then that's when it can become a problem. And of course, everyone is so different as well, so remembering that. Oh, sorry, I skipped a slide there. So what causes anxiety can be something from our past or childhood, everyday life and habits, so exhaustion, stress, things that sometimes we all experience, long working hours, pressures, debt, money worries, all of those things can have a impact, along with things like our diet. So certainly things like caffeine is highly associated with anxiety, and too much caffeine, eating lots of sugar, the impact of our diet, our physical health. So if you have a long-term health condition or a disability, but also chronic pain can make a real impact and really become quite draining and wear people down, as well as drugs or medication side effects. Certainly things like steroids or anti-malaria medication can be associated with anxiety. Alcohol, street drugs, genetics, so many things, and it's, as I say, a very complicated picture. Autism, can really impact anxiety. So in terms of self-management and treatment, there's lots of things that we can encourage people to do to look after themselves, and I think understanding what you're going through and how you're feeling is incredibly important. So talking, we do say it is good to talk, and often all people want is someone to listen, and as I say, sort of to re-emphasise again, signpost on to somewhere to support. Also thinking about physical exercise is obviously something we're all hopefully quite passionate about. Getting people active can really help. We just don't want that ever to become a burden in itself. So getting that balance, I think, is key, and doing things that you enjoy as well. Okay. As well as obviously here we've got some of the treatments, the self-help resources, medication, talking treatments, so things like meditation and mindfulness can be key. Oh. So we're just going to quickly look at depression. Again, this language of mental health. So people often say they're depressed when perhaps they're just a bit sad or miserable, or had a bad day. But certainly depression varies so much from people to people, person to person, and can appear for no reason. So, you know, people talk about the great animation by the World Health Organization about the black dog. Haven't seen it, I definitely urge you to go and have a look about the black dog that comes, and you know, it's about learning to tame those feelings. Sometimes it's about people feel lack of energy or motivation. Some people are really tearful. Some people feel really sad and miserable. Some people just don't feel anything at all. So I think it can be really hard if you. I would definitely urge to watch something like the World Health Organization animation, or have a look at some of the films from people describing their own depression on our website. So physical sensations, it can be really varied. So sleeping too much or too little, feeling very tired or having no energy. Again, appetite can be too much or too little, depending. You know, some people in the run for the biscuit tin or the chocolates, and other people just can't bear eating at all. So it really varies. Aches and pains are very common as well, along with coping strategies that aren't so healthy. So tobacco, alcohol, drugs, overworking, and many other things people can do to sort of manage some of their symptoms come out. Oh, sorry. So physical, so feelings, again, really depends. Everyone's very, very different, and that's why it's very, very hard when we talk about mental health and labels. We don't want to put people in boxes or to medicalise it too much. It's very hard even for the professionals often to diagnose people as well. So certainly in a 90-minute webinar, we're not going to be able to diagnose people at all, and we don't want to be, but it's just giving us an awareness. So I think one of the key things on this is losing pleasure in things that somebody usually enjoys, whatever that might be. And you know, this sometimes plays out in a physical activity context, but everything is just sort of too much. And if swimming was the thing that the person enjoyed before and just getting nothing out of it, that can often be a huge indicator that someone is perhaps experiencing depression. Okay, so in terms of behaviours, we talked about some of them earlier, but doing those things that they enjoyed, cutting themselves off, so becoming socially isolated, just not wanting to be around people. Self-harming can sometimes be an issue for some people, and that can vary in the way. I don't want to talk about methods, but what I would say is that some people use things like over-exercising or overworking as a way of not sleeping as well. So there's lots of other things outside of traditional automatic things that you would think of, and people find it difficult to speak and being very withdrawn. And concentration, particularly in a swimming environment or a learning environment that you're often working in, you know, you're asking your learners, your participants to remember quite a lot. So it's another demand of something for them to think about. And you know, if they find it hard to concentrate, make decisions, it could be part of their mental health problems as well. Confidence and self-esteem often lowered or non-existent, and not being kind to themselves, just remembering back to judging yourself on reasonable and realistic standards. Well, if you're feeling like this, then often you know that you're not doing that at all. Okay, So it can be really difficult, and for some people, they may be thinking about harming themselves and thinking about suicide as well. And I think it's important, obviously, you know, we only have a short time together, but just to say, if ever you are concerned about somebody in relation to, you think they're going to hurt themselves, it is okay to ask that question, and having been on the other side, both sides, by asking someone, you know, if someone gives you cause for concern, things that they've said, if by asking that question, you're not going to plant that seed in their head. So saying, I'm really worried about you because you said this, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Is not going to make them go from being okay to thinking about doing something. So it's just having that conversation, and it can be a very difficult conversation to have, I know, but you definitely won't be planting any seeds. And you could just give somebody the opening to talk about how they're feeling. So I think that's really important. And I'm happy to stay on after the call as well if anyone wants to speak to me or ask me any questions individually. That is completely fine. So when mental health becomes a problem is when it affects day-to-day life, our relationships, our ability to live and work productively, and to seek help and support. So it's really important that we talk about this, because 1 in 4 of us may struggle with our mental health each year. So there's lots and lots of labels. You don't need to be an expert in all of them. Okay, I think what is important is having an awareness. Do go on our website and have a read, or come on a training course to find out more, where we can have proper discussion around them. But just also, people don't fit neatly into boxes in life, and there's a lot of misdiagnosis anyway. And the same with physical health. Like, do you know about every single physical health condition that somebody may have in your session? I as a coach and instructor of many years, I'm pretty sure you don't. What the question that we should be asking is, how can I help you, and how does this affect your swimming or running, whatever the case may be. So I just sort of urge, don't get hung up on labels, but having an awareness is always useful. Okay, so we just want to unpick these words, sort of stigma and discrimination. So stigma is used quite a lot in a mental health context, because if we think back over the last sort of century, Hayley's history lesson here, you know, people for many years, if they were struggling with their mental health, years ago were thought of as witches, or were put into psychiatric hospitals and units and locked away from society, and the world has changed and understanding has grown, but there's still been incidences, particularly in the media. People are very fearful often of some of these labels, and because they don't understand. So we talk a lot about stigma in mental health, and it's definitely reducing. We see that all of the time. But in terms of a definition, so stigma is really about when we make assumptions about how a mental health problem will affect someone's behaviour. So perhaps you're receiving some application forms for your new intake, and you read on it that somebody has an eating disorder, or perhaps had self-harm in the past, and you might think, oh goodness me, what am I going to do? And we start making lots of assumptions, or start making assumptions about what that self-harm might look like and present, and actually you meet the person and it's very different. So that's what we mean by stigma, and you know, that happens in all walks of society. So people can sometimes be concerned that the person's different, dangerous, or strange. Okay. When we talk about discrimination, that is when we act on it. So it's when we treat someone differently because of their mental health. That could be consciously or subconsciously. So it might mean it's extreme. We get an application form from a volunteer or another instructor who has schizophrenia, bipolar, psychosis, let's say, something like that, and we go, oh, I'm not sure, I don't think they can be a volunteer, and actually we're not going to put forward their application based on that decision. I'm sure that's never going to happen, and that's quite an extreme, and certainly I know lots of people with bipolar, schizophrenia that work and do work in the sports sector as well. That would just be an example of discrimination. Okay, so we just wanted to sort of explain it, so we can, it's something we fight against, particularly in a mental health context. But just to bring this sort of cycle of stigma to life, so this is from Time to Change, so our big campaign has been running for over 10 years with Rethink Mental Illness, so two huge mental health charities work together on this. And just to bring it to life really, if it's okay, I will use my own example. So when I was, I think years ago, and I was really, I didn't tell anyone, didn't want to tell work, didn't even want to tell my family, my husband, because my job was to support everyone else. That's what I did. But I was really, really poorly. So I was scared to reveal the problem. I really fought off getting any help for a long time. There's lots of silence around the issue. So there's a lack of knowledge. And that impacted, not just on me, I was contributing to that, that stigma really, because I had a lot of self-stigma. So, in turn, that means people are scared to raise the issue and there's more silence. And so it kind of goes on and on and on. However, I did around the same time, actually, take the job for Mind not long after and started getting involved in Time to Change. So the first Thursday of every February is Time to Talk Day, so it's Thursday the 7th of Feb 2019, and I got involved a few years ago with Time to Change. So over the years we've done all sorts of things like giving out tea bags with It's Okay to Talk, It's Time to Talk, and I actually went on to my local park run with some of my running friends, and we had our Time to Talk t-shirts on, It's Okay to Talk. We were giving out sort of literature, and all of a sudden we were sort of starting to really break down that stigma, because when we started talking about it, other people would come up and say, oh, you know what, I've been struggling myself, or my mum has, or my sister, and it just made it okay not to be okay. So it is a cycle of stigma, but it is also something that we can break as well. Just to say, if anyone is on the call that has been struggling with their mental health, it can be really hard to have that conversation for the first time. And I'm not saying here that you have to go away and start becoming a mental health advocate at all. But certainly there's lots of people and support out there if you did. And actually, it's really quite empowering when you do share your story, and also quite humbling when other people come and talk to you as well. Okay. So that's stigma, so hopefully we have addressed it, and you're all here today, so we're helping to break it down. Now we're going to talk about the 5 ways to wellbeing. Can anyone just pop in the chat box if they've seen this before, just a yes, no, any kind of feedback? Just check you're still there, really. No, it's useful to, okay, it's just always useful to get a feel for where we're at. I know everyone's understanding is very, very different. Okay, so just to give you kind of a lowdown, we don't want to get too scientific today, but the New Economics Foundation are sort of a research organisation, and they did a huge piece of research into all the ways that people can look after their mental well-being, so in that broad definition. And they analysed them, and they basically brought them into these 5 themes. There are hundreds of ways, and everyone's so different, but these 5 themes sort of summarise them really nicely. So I'll just take you through them quickly. So connecting with people. So I guess I would always say we are pack animals as humans, that actually if you've been having a bad day, lots of people would like to get on the phone or go and have a chat with maybe their mum or their partner or someone that they trust. That connecting with people is actually really good. It's proven to be good for our mental well-being. That being around people, with people, sharing can strengthen mental well-being. Sometimes, the caveat to that is if you're around people all day, sometimes what you need to do for your mental well-being is disconnect and have some time on your own. But it is one of the strongest ways of supporting well-being. And what we found through our own work at Mind, particularly the sports programme that I lead on, Get Set to Go, about getting people active for their mental health. The physical activity was important, but the connecting with other people, statistically, we did some huge research, had a really greater impact on people's mental well-being. So at the end of each session, or most of the sessions, we would organise some kind of social activity, encourage people to get to know one another over a cup of tea and toast, and it was being with people had a massive impact on their physical and then their mental health. So connect is one, be active, which we talk about throughout this presentation, but reduces our risk of depression, helps us feel better, whatever it is, whether it's getting off the bus to stop earlier, raises those endorphins is key. Take notice. So we talk a lot at the moment. Mindfulness is incredibly topical, and I think it's something that's proven to be incredibly important for our mental well-being. So through taking notice, that's like being aware of where we are right now and being in the moment as such. So it can be around things like breathing techniques. So there's a fantastic app called Headspace, that is one of many that I can recommend, which really helps around meditation, really short, guided about your breathing and taking notice of how you're feeling, because we're all so busy running around the world right now that we often forget to do that. Equally, it could be having a nice cup of coffee with no telly, no being distracted, and just savouring the moment, or noticing the change in the seasons. So taking notice of being taking some time for now of how you're feeling and the world around you is key. So keep learning. So we're not saying everyone has to go back to school, but that feeling of setting a goal and working towards it and achieving it is proven to strengthen our well-being. So the example of whether it's doing the crossword and that little feel-good feeling that you get when you've achieved it, through to mastering a new stroke, or learning on a course. And yeah, I've done that. Actually proven to help our well-being. And the final one, give. So, this is where, if I was in the room with you, I would say this isn't about giving £5 a mind, although that's very nice if you do. Charitable acts of donation does generally feel better when you do it. I'm not asking for your money here, but giving your time, your energy, your talents, saying thank you to someone that doesn't normally get thanked, or giving someone a compliment, those really small things. If you think about last time you did any of those things, giving money, volunteering for the day, noticing something no one normally notices. So, like for me, speaking to the cleaner, and sort of, always someone, I think cleaners get undervalued, and then think afterwards, oh yeah, I felt good for that, like that is that feeling. So giving your time, your energy, your talents, and giving a compliment, all of those things impact on your mental well-being, and they all connect as well. So in a swimming environment, I guess it's about thinking about how you can bring some of those in. You do lots of goal settings already with your learners, whoever they are, whatever age, ability, thinking about how they can support one another and give each other maybe feedback or compliments. Think about how they can take notice of their progress, and again, progress of others, and connecting. So I'm sure you do lots of like energizers during your warm-ups, but sort of really encouraging that bond and connection with one another. Okay. So it is about the small things. You don't need to be an expert. Everyone's diagnosis of a mental health problem will be different anyway. We all experience things differently. It's about not being afraid and listening and taking time and being patient. So as I say, that thinking about that parity of esteem, as we call it, so treating mental health and physical health the same. That we're not an expert in everything, but often we'd listen to someone if they'd said that they were going through a tough time because of physical illness, and we would kind of reassure them, and hopefully if they hadn't been to the doctors, we'd signpost them there, and it's exactly the same. Okay, so we're just going to look now at this link between physical and mental health, physical activity and mental health. We kind of touched on it already quite briefly. So I'm not going to spend too long, but just to say physical activity is so good for us that it should actually be one of the first things that doctors recommend to us when we present at the doctor, particularly with mild, moderate depression. So hopefully every GP is different, and there's actually a whole piece of, there's a new resource launching for GPs and professionals in the next couple of weeks to help them to do this. But prescribing physical activity should be one of the first things they do, along with other things like medication and talking therapies. So it helps improve our mood, endorphins. It helps us to reduce stress, so our cortisol levels, by being physically active, whatever that sport may be, it helps us to get a better balance of the stress hormone, cortisol, helps our serotonin levels, and it helps us sleep, dopamine, so all these things happen automatically when we're active. Bless you, whoever that was, and lifts our self-esteem as well. But also it's about the softer things. It's about the achievement, the new skills, the having fun. And I think that, again, the research we did with Loughborough University came back that it's really important to build what they call intrinsic motivation. So doing something because you value it, you enjoy it, is incredibly important, and it strengthens, again, your mental well-being. So if you make it fun, you make people see how they're progressing, that really helps at their mental well-being, rather than feeling like you've got to do it because you're feeling guilty, or maybe in your environment sometimes people are there because they have to be. So helping them to really understand why it's good for them. And yes, it's a life-saving skill, but also it can be something that can help them to unwind and make friends and be fun as well. So yeah, I'm all for bringing back the fun factor in any kind of physical activity. Okay, so it's especially important if you have a mental health problem, particularly if you have a severe and enduring mental health problem, because you are twice as likely to die from heart disease, 4 times as likely to die from respiratory disease, and have a lower life expectancy. Now, there's lots of reasons behind this, and it's a very complicated landscape, but often because of the comorbid other sort of physical health, the effects of medication. So we have some very powerful drugs, things like lithium, for example, is one of the treatments, can have quite large side effects, but also some of the less healthy coping strategies may not be so good at eating well. So just saw a note from Kim about a TV documentary about physical activity and mental health. There's been some great programs, definitely. And I think I would always say it's about balance. It's really important. And as the head of physical activity for Mind, I have you know, of course I'm someone that's physically active helps my mental well-being. It is really important, but it doesn't mean it fixes everyone and makes everything else go away. And sometimes some of the case studies and some of the research would imply that if you're active, you can just get rid of all of those other things. And I think we just have to take quite a balanced view that some people will need talking therapy and some people will medication, and that's okay too. So yes, balance I think is definitely key. But just to say, in terms of it being used as sort of a treatment, particularly for mild moderate depression, so if you go to your doctor, mild moderate depression, it's been proven to be effective as physical activity in sessions of 45 minutes to an hour, 3 times a week over a 10 to 14 week period. So again, just to sort of make you aware, 3 times a week, probably the kind of sessions that you're doing already. So I think what we are starting to see now is more physical activity on prescription, and I think that's something that we've certainly been lobbying for as it's part of the toolkit of support, shall we say. Okay. And there you go, I just said that. So, okay, so just to check you're still awake, what are the benefits of swimming on mental health, aside from the ones I've already talked about? What else? How can swimming benefit somebody's mental health? I've given you quite a few clues over the last 10 minutes. Social, life skills, stress release and relaxation, the floating in the water, yeah, completely. Incredibly calming, yeah, just being around water, unless it's incredibly noisy pool, and then I don't know, but for me I find that quite hard. The acoustics, having to overcome a fear, building confidence makes you happy, yeah, relaxation, weightless, definitely. And certainly I think particularly when you're swimming and you're swimming strokes, you don't have time to think about that, those worrying thoughts, because often if someone's focusing on technique, for example, then they're occupied, and so they don't have time to think. But yeah, I think water, we know, is very calming, and certainly there is open water swimming. Open water swimming as well. There's lots of research starting to come through around the benefits of mental health. Although it feels a bit cold to me, so and warm water swimming definitely. Okay, so yeah, we talked about lots of these as well. I think I've mentioned this already, but this better social provision, so being socially connected, links to better mental well-being, and that in turn helps people feel like they can cope and helps around their resilience, and that was one of our key findings. Also, certainly around loneliness and isolation, and certainly I know Swim England are doing lots around in the past around dementia-friendly swimming and older people and people with long-term health conditions to again help people overcome those challenges as well, because loneliness and isolation is almost like a silent killer and really affects people's mental and physical health. And these two things are completely interlinked and affect one another. Okay, but sometimes we need to be a bit cautious as well. So there's thank you, Charlotte. So sometimes the accomplishments as well helps well-being. Yeah, definitely. And I think as a volunteer, I get as much pleasure out of seeing my runners, because I'm a run leader, achieve, and that really strengthens my well-being as well by seeing them do well and achieve their goals, and I feel really proud of them. So definitely from both sides, as a participant and as a volunteer or a coach. Okay, so but sometimes we need to approach sport and physical activity with caution. Yeah, Tally, we said there about it helps you get away from reality for a while. Yes, completely. It's escapism, isn't it? Yeah, completely agree. So it is really good for us, but sometimes we do need to approach it with caution, and particularly in these situations. So again, not expecting you to be an expert or to start saying, no, you can't take part, but again, just having an awareness that over-exercising is a challenge for some people. So particularly if someone has eating problems, or you suspect has probably got a bit of a problem with food, people can use it to compensate for those calories. So in its extreme level, when people are really unwell with eating problems, you know, certainly know of stories of people that would be marching around their room or doing, even in a hospital environment, trying to burn off as many calories as they can. So if you know someone in your group has an eating problem, I'm sure if it's sort of a moderate activity, it's fine, but having that conversation with the individual or parents. If somebody was so poorly, then that conversation would have taken place already. Someone would have talked to you about this, about their level of physical activity. Thinking at a performance end, keeping an eye if someone's overtraining and you're noticing it's starting to affect them. And if you think someone's overtraining or doing too much, again, you would have that conversation, again, because it affects their physical health and their performance. So people that have compulsive or addictive feelings about exercise, the right thing, you do need to take care of your own well-being. That is incredibly important. You need to give care to take care. Take care to give care, sorry. That is really important that we think about ourselves as well. And it is okay to do that. And if you do have to have some difficult conversations, making sure you've got someone that you can have a debrief with, or there's some support, whether that's from your line manager or welfare lead, or your employee assistance program if you've got one, the counselling line, speaking to someone, or calling the Mind Info line if you need to have a chat with something that's been a bit difficult. So yeah, people who sometimes can develop compulsive or addictive feelings about exercises, for some people they find it helps, and then they want to do it more and more and more. And again, we all know that that can affect their physical health as well, and injury and performance, as well as their mental health. And it can be used as self-harm. So again, I don't want to scare any of you right now, but I think it's just having an awareness that sometimes there's a tipping point, and certainly we've seen this in our programme with some people who were completely inactive. they found that physical activity really helped their mental well-being, and then they got to the point where actually they were doing too much, and we had to have conversations with them about having a balanced life, and making sure they take rest, but also doing things, different things. So it might be going for a walk or doing stretching or something on those lighter days as well. People experiencing side effects of medication. Medication for mental health can affect people in lots of different ways. Weight gain, so there is a link between many, but not all, of antidepressant medication and weight gain. People often put on at least, I think the research says around £10. So again, that knock-on effect on self-esteem, particularly in a pool environment, thinking about what you're wearing. For some people, around their hydration levels and energy levels. So lots of people find mornings very hard because of the effects on sleep that their medication has. So if you're, for example, thinking about running a mental health specific session, so particularly targeting, reaching out to people that are struggling with their mental health, you probably don't want to put that at 8 or 9 o'clock on a morning, because people will find that often very, very difficult to get to. And again, people who experience anxiety or panic attacks, so particularly for if you are at like a performance level or you're training very hard, those feelings sometimes, or if you're doing a dry side session, so if you're working more at sort of that end where you're doing a mixture of dry side and then swimming, those feelings that sometimes people will have around when they're having a panic attack or starting to have a panic attack, so sort of a feeling of hyperventilating and their breathing being affected, can sometimes be similar feelings to when you're working out quite hard. So it's about working with the individual if you know they have panic attacks. Now, just to say there, it's really important, if somebody has a panic attack for the first time, don't make any assumptions, because unless you know for sure they're in a panic attack, the feelings can be very much like somebody having a heart attack or having breathing difficulties or an asthma attack. So never make assumptions. If you see someone that is sort of hyperventilating, follow your first aid training, get extra help, ring 999. On the converse, if someone tells you they have anxiety attacks or panic attacks all of the time, just ask them how you can support them during that, how they want your help. Often people will just need a little bit of time, last usually a matter of minutes, but just to caveat, please don't make assumptions. And again, we've got quite a lot of resources online on our sports section of our website about this. So again, happy to take any, have a look, and then do get in touch with questions. Okay. So moving on to just looking at some of the barriers. So we know that physical activity can really help our mental health. We also know there's lots of barriers to getting started, and we tend to group them thinking about the physical environment, psychologically, sort of technical barriers, so very much sort of related to the sport itself, and then the sort of the social barriers. So I just want you to have a think, to give you some examples there. So physical barriers, it could be about travelling to the venue or medication effects. Psychological, it could be about being anxious in a new situation or difficulty sort of concentrating. Technical, might not know the specific technique. Or social, maybe it's around find it hard to make friends. So can you come up with any swimming related barriers? Pop them in the chat box. The fear of water, yeah, massive. Age, yeah. Body conscious fear, yeah. Not being comfortable, early morning practices, yeah. People seeing them, yeah, trauma. There are lots and lots of things. Lack of experience. Okay. So there are lots of barriers, and again, we will send the slides round. And when we started on our sort of journey as sports project at Mind, we talked to lots of people to really understand what was holding them back. and 70% of people told us that having a mental health problem made it more difficult to get started. Over half said that they were not gym body ready because they're embarrassed about their body shape or size. 2/3 worried about going by themselves and not knowing anyone. And 1/3 said that they didn't want you guys or us, the sports sector, to know that they're struggling with their mental health. So there's lots and lots of things that come into play around how people are feeling like they're not good enough to take part, having bad days. Body image, I think, is key with swimming. I mean, I find swimming can be quite, makes you quite self-conscious. So, and there's some really simple adaptations there in terms of, allowing people to have their towels poolside and being flexible if the pool operator will let you with the clothing that can be worn and things like that. But being sort of sensitive and so that people aren't feeling isolated as well. So there's lots and lots of things, and some of these things I think it's really important that lots of people experience barriers to being physically active. So whether you're working with women's groups, older people, people from ethnic minorities, everyone experiences some kind of barriers. And many of these you will have ways to overcome already. So knowing what to do when you arrive and the norms, like where to go, where the locker is, who's who. Swimming's hard. There's a lot of things you've got to do before you get poolside. That's probably common to lots of people who might have something in place. I just want to stress that when you have a mental health problem, that these barriers can be really magnified. So you feel them often more intensely, so the effects of them. So that, like, thinking back to what we said earlier about butterflies, we often all feel a bit nervous when we go somewhere. I certainly know people that would go in and out of the session, in and out of the venue like 10 times or for weeks before actually turning up. Or people that would be literally physically sick on the car park because they were so anxious. So just to sort of lots of the solutions, lots of the barriers and lots of the solutions might be the same. I think the intensity is just really important to emphasise can be much greater. But also just to say, some of the barriers, very few are sort of just about mental health. So I think there's lots of things that you're probably doing already in your sessions that you're looking at that and thinking, oh well, we have ways to mitigate that already, that will just work as well. So okay. And also say other people will probably not tell you there's no barriers and if it affects 1 in 4 of us, adults and 1 in 10 young people, you've got people in your session already. So again, just to sort of reassure you there. So the approach that we use, we worked with lots of people with mental health problems, with coaches, and we came up with CARE. So that's our inclusive coaching approach, and there's a link there to a neat little animation that we created with UK Coaching and Public Health England, which explains this probably more succinctly than I will, but it comes down to these 4 things that you can do. So C standing for your coaching and customer skills, so really thinking about that experience that you can provide, acknowledging some of it is inside your control and some of it is out of your control. Just want to add that what the experience you provide before, during and after a session, so making sure it's welcoming and people know where to go, making it okay to talk about mental health as a good physical health, offering those alternatives, giving feedback, just giving a really good sort of coaching and customer experience, and having worked with lots of people and worked in inclusion previously, I think I really believe that good coaches and good instructors kind of adapt to lots of people that they meet anyway. So just thinking about that before, during and after. The A stands as awareness. So get to know your individuals, and I think certainly when you were giving feedback about the behaviours, that really indicated to me that you as instructors, you are really taking notice. And I think getting to know what's normal for somebody and your colleagues and your friends and your family, and then spotting when something's a bit different. So asking people how they're feeling, that paying attention to sort of the warning signs, using your observation skills, and importantly, not making assumptions and just saying, I'm worried about you. How can I help? How can I support you? Because I think that's really key. The R for respect. Of course, we want to treat everyone fairly and kind of not single people out because of their mental health problems. And if possible, just making yourself available to listen to them, as I say, as you would with any physical health. And treating information where appropriate in confidence. And I say where appropriate in confidence because, of course, some information, if you're worried about somebody harming themselves or other people, you will have safeguarding policies, and it's incredibly important that you do share that and you don't take on too much yourself. You are there as a coach or an instructor, so just want to sort of add that caveat there. And then around your empathy, you're never going to know exactly how someone feels, so no two people with the same condition think and feel and behave the same. But listen and try and understand. And I think the key is not feeling pressure to fix somebody or find the answers. We're not mental health specialists, we're not psychiatrists, we're not there to fix them. You're there to coach them in their swimming ability, but just trying to signpost them to support and just treat them how you'd kind of want to be treated yourself if you wasn't feeling well. So yeah, definitely urge you to go and have a look at the animation as well. But just think of those things, and I would say probably many of you are doing this already quite naturally. You haven't got to go and make lots of expensive adaptations or do things wildly differently. It is about those softer skills. So you can please note we're coming towards the end now. So just wanted to highlight some of our research that some of you might be interested in from our work with Get Set to Go, which was our Sport England project with Loughborough University. And we've got a report on our website that you might want to have a look at. But a few things I really wanted to focus on. These are the recommendations from the report. And I'm sure these are the things that you try to do already, so around consistency, so the same place, same time, same coach really helps people, particularly, I think it helps all of us in terms of our physical activity, but particularly if you're struggling with your mental health. We talked about autonomous motivation, so making it fun and enjoyable and people seeing the value. Where appropriate, including friends and family involved. And for us, something that's really important is lived experience of mental health problems and people helping one another where they can. So if, for example, you was looking to develop mental health swimming programs in partnership with organisations, then really listening to people who have been there and been in the same boat really helps. And thinking about those sort of barriers that we've talked about and how you can overcome them. Okay, there's a few more that came through around, for us, we did a lot of sort of sports projects to then help people get into mainstream sessions, so making things personalised and person-centred, and that may not be appropriate for you. But one thing we found that when people couldn't come along to their aqua swim session or their swimming session, that people, because they understood that being active actually helped them, they went out for a walk on those days instead, and actually came through really strongly. People really understood it helped their mental health and well-being. But also around sort of linking up with the mental health sector. So as I said at the start, we have got Local Mind in your local area. They're a great point of information. There are also other mental health charities if you need support from them as well, or if you want to reach out to them to get involved in activities. And also, you're here today, so you're here developing your knowledge of mental health, which is fantastic. Okay, so just want to come on to a case study. So meet Sean and Lucy, and again, I can't show the video on the software. We have a link through to a video which you might want to go and have a look at. So Sean and Lucy are part of Deadly Mind. So Sean is a peer volunteer. So on the first picture, Sean is on the right, that's the first, and Lucy has the long blonde hair. And they worked together over a period of months. So Lucy hadn't been active since she was actually at school, and she wanted to be active for her mental health. She had physical disability as well, really lacked confidence, have lots of social barriers, anxiety about being around other people, about going to the pool for the first time. And through the Get Set to Go programme, they buddied up in essence. So Sian met up with Lucy every week to support her to get active. So I think I said earlier, 2/3 of people weren't active because they had no one to go with. So this really helped her, Lucy, to form a weekly habit. She's lost weight, more confident, she's got a new hobby, and she's got something to talk to her friends and family about, which is incredibly important. It's improved her mental health and well-being because, again, she's got active at the same time, but also seeing Lucy progress has really, really helped. Now, I appreciate you can't necessarily all set up here buddy programs at the pools that you're working in, but it's definitely something to think about going forward, how you can buddy people up to support one another. So if you've got somebody in your group who's particularly anxious or shy or withdrawn, is there somebody in that group that's more empathetic and understanding that you can sort of buddy together to work with one another? Sort of another example in Hereford Mind, aqua aerobics was one of the most popular activities, so a mainstream session that was already running. And Neil, one of our volunteers, had actually gone there independently, really seen the benefits. So you talked about the relaxation, sort of the buoyancy of the water, the calm on the mind, the being with other people, and certainly, so he worked with the instructor, delivered some awareness training, and supported sort of local people to go along and take part in those sessions. So we've had people take part in swimming and aqua activities all the way from open water swimming to last week, I think, was the big dip up north, where lots of people took their clothes off and got in the North Sea and did a swim for Mind. People one-to-one, people in the groups. I think for me, something that is key is that social support where possible. So as we see there, Sian and Lucy are having a chat at the end. I'm pretty sure there's probably a cup of tea involved somewhere. But really thinking about how we can sort of break down those barriers and thinking back to care, you know, customer skills and coaching skills, your awareness, respect and empathy. It's not asking you to do anything wildly different. And where there is a mental health programme, such as Get Set to Go or other programmes, then see how you can link in. You might be able to be the provider that's running those sessions, and it will help you to increase your awareness and understanding, and also help the service users have a really positive experience. Okay, so before I finish, I just briefly want to highlight the support available both for yourself and for others. So there's lots and lots of support out there, and as we said throughout, taking care of yourself is important, as well as looking after the people that you work with. So at Mind we have the information line that's available Monday to Friday, 9 till 6. The details are here, and we'll send this round. You can also email them, access support via our website. You can also find local Mind, so if you think there is a map there. Our local sorry, did whoever that is mute themselves? Sorry, thank you. And you can also find your local Mind, so you can 30 all in your local area. We also have EdiFriends. So Friends is an online community that anyone that's struggling with their mental health can join. So you have to be 18, so I say anyone over the 18. You need an email address, and I think you put your date of birth in there just to check you're over 18. And people give and receive support. So if someone's struggling, it's a bit like Facebook. It started out of a campaign called The Elephant in the Room. So this concept that we don't talk about our mental health, it's a big taboo. It grew that large. We were on Facebook that we were asked to set up our own website because it was that large. But we have themes on there, so people will sort of tag discussions, so use a bit like a hashtag, around sort of getting access and to give support to
this is why she emailed me about
and it's a great place to
wanting the email
talk to other people that are struggling with their mental health. Sorry.
Lily's asked me about the certificate.
We're just hearing this whole conversation.
Ryan as well, and I've got can't do anything more about it.
Sorry about that, folks. I can't. EP, can you please, Eleanor, can you please mute yourself? Sorry, we don't want to hear your conversation in the nicest possible way. Okay, so if someone's struggling in a crisis, of course, if you need to signpost someone to support, signpost them sort of generally, if it's to their GP. If they're in crisis, so by crisis we mean someone feels that their mental health is at a breaking point and you're really concerned that they're going to harm themselves or someone else, then treat it exactly the same as you would a physical health emergency. So signpost them to 999.
But now this makes you wonder about where she was working previously, Elaine.
Sorry.
Because, yeah.
Sorry guys, I'm just going to try and mute if I can find. Thanks, guys. Sorry about that. We didn't really need to hear that conversation. Thanks, Claire. Yeah, not great for my anxiety, but we're good. We're good. So yeah. So if it was an emergency, exactly the same as physical health, 999 A&E. The Samaritans are also great. They're there to listen to anyone, any time of day. Children, young people, exactly the same. So what would you do if your child or young person in a session was struggling with their physical health? Presumably you talk to the parents when they pick them up and say you're worried and you think they need to go to the doctor. And I know this can be a really difficult conversation to have when we're talking about mental health, but in terms of treating it the same, and think back to many of you will have first aid training. What would you do if a first aid incident? Exactly the same. So particularly in a crisis situation, if you're worried about someone day to day, if you're worried about someone on a day-to-day basis, they've talked to you, they said they're feeling really low, they've been feeling like it for weeks, then saying, you know, have you thought about going to your GP, or what about getting in touch with someone like Mind or other mental health charities locally if appropriate. So there was a question there about other mental health charities. So we do have a sort of a directory on our website, and certainly there are lots of other providers and charities who work very closely together. So Rethink Mental Illness, Together UK. The Mix is fantastic. So if you're working a lot with young people, children, young people, the Mix is a great website, but also they will do text chat lines for young people as well. So if you're working with teenagers and maybe it's not so appropriate to talk to their parents, you might say, have you heard of the Mix? Get involved. Well, I believe we've also got some of these contacts in the volunteer. I think as a good volunteer guide or handbook, but I'll check in with the team about that and can certainly share local links. But yeah, so just to recap there, if you're worried about someone in general, signpost them to their GP or to Mind, or perhaps young people to the Mix. I think would be a great place. If you think it's a crisis, you think they're going to hurt themselves or others, then treat it exactly the same as physical health, GP, 999 or A&E. Okay, and I've seen some questions, so I'll take those in just a minute if that's okay. So in terms of resources, resources are a click away. We've got lots available, certainly on a sport out area of our website, as well as our information pages. Lots of people sharing their own personal stories. We've also got video clips from coaches about the adaptations that they make and their experiences as well, which I think are really, really powerful. So certainly have a look. We've got resources on safeguarding and top tips, etc. online. And we also convene a mental health and sport network twice a year. So we move this around the country, so particularly aimed at regional providers. And we bring people together to sort of share and learn from one another and have guest speakers. So just to sort of start to close before I open up for questions, so no one expects you to be mental health experts at all. It's great you're here today raising your awareness. There is lots of local support available to you and national support too. We all have mental health, so don't be afraid to ask someone how they're feeling, and maybe ask them twice if you think they're not looking like their usual selves. Remember, it's the simple things that count. So by that, I mean, it's, you know, checking in with them the next week, particularly if you were worried about them and saying, oh, you know, you might open a conversation by saying something like, I've noticed you don't seem yourself, and then next week checking in and say, how are you doing? How things? So it's those simple things that count, and don't try and fix everyone. You're there as a coach or instructor, so remember it's about the care acronym. We've got lots more resources launching over the coming months. So I think I mentioned there will be an e-learning course that will have some more detail, be very interactive for you to complete either individually or in small groups, as well as other training that's out there as well. And just to really say, your own mental health is just as important. You need to take care to give care. So looking after yourself is key. So you have permission today to go and do something for yourself. Go and do something that you enjoy, even if it's having that cup of tea with no one around. I go and sit on the step outside. That's quite nice, just to take 2 minutes by myself. So yeah, and we're here to support you. So before I open to questions, just in that chat box, is there anything that can you share anything that you've learned, one fact that surprised you, or anything that you would do differently as a result? You're still there. Everyone wants to go to their lunch. The amount of people that go for doctors for 1 in 3 visits. Yeah, that's staggering, isn't it? Be more open in conversations. Yeah, fantastic. It's okay not to be okay. Okay to have that chat. Don't worry, none of us will have all the answers. How many people it affects without realising? Yeah, massive, isn't it? 1 in 4 adults, 1 in 10 young people. Just reassured you, that's good to hear. Hopefully you're feeling a little bit more confident now. I think that's the thing, that lots of us are doing good things. Men being more affected. And I think one of the challenges, so thinking back to that statistic, 6,000 suicides each year, 75% are men. Men are underrepresented in services. Sorry guys on the call, but I think there is still this sort of challenge for men around seeking support. So one of the things that we've done is partner with the English Football League to try and reach out to men and talk to them in a way that's more appropriate, and that, you know, it doesn't have to be all touchy-feely as well. Brilliant. Okay, so thank you so much for giving me a little bit of feedback there. Yeah, sadly, Beck, I'm really shocked too, and it's really sad about how many people take their own lives each year. So yeah, that's staggering. But the more we talk about this and the more we get support, the better. So now I'm going to open up to you guys. So if you want to unmute yourself, if you've got any questions, if you want to unmute yourself and ask away, I will hang on the line for the next 10 minutes or so. But just to say, you've been great. Thanks for joining, and ask away. So we have a 3-hour course that's delivered by Local Minds around particularly mental health in a sports setting. So you can find details on our website, minds.org.uk/sport, but there's also lots of other training. Oh, so we had a question a second ago about worried about the mental health of teachers, I think. Okay, so there's 2 there. So they pop up quickly, so I'll try my best. So there's one about worried about the mental health and well-being of your teachers because of spiteful comments from parents. Do you want to unmute yourself so we can have a chat if you're comfortable? I've got a few ideas there. Okay, so on that fact around looking after your staff, I think that is key. And workplaces have a responsibility as well. So if any of you are like operators or employers on the call, two-thirds of people are struggling, tell us that their workplace affects their mental health. Sorry, I'm just writing down the questions at the same time. So two-thirds of people said that the workplace had an impact. So we have got lots of resources online on our workplace section. So mind.org.uk/workplace. I think getting it on the agenda at a staff meeting is really important. Having an open conversation about how we all doing, sort of a barometer check, is important. We also have a tool called a WAP, Wellness Action Plan, which is great, and it's a way of getting employees and employers to understand one another and think about, for us all to think about what support we need when we're not feeling so great or we're feeling stressed, and what we can do to look after one another, and what our employer can do as well. So that's a great resource, and we're going to have some more CPD events around this in the sports sector. Because particularly if you've gone through a difficult time with a parent or challenging conversation, then I think that checking in is key, and looking at how you can support somebody through that. So employee assistance programs, so often many employers will have like a counselling line and access to free usually 6 to 8 sessions of counselling. There was another question about, I'm trying to remember them okay quickly, staff. Oh, here we go, I found them. So right, I'll take the one on adult swimming and PTSD. So someone that's had a past drowning incident and suffered PTSD. Now that's quite an individual situation, and probably one that's for us to have a chat about offline, because that's quite individual. And I'm sure you've probably tried lots of things already. So very happy to stay on the line afterwards to have a chat about that. So PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and I would imagine certainly going very slowly with that individual would be needed, and perhaps getting input from if they're receiving any therapy as well. But yeah, happy to stay on, Beck, and have a person-to-person chat on that one. Are there any resources for SENCO and mental illness? So I think, again, a great question. There is an overlap between mental health problems and disabilities. We are just piloting a whole school approach, doing work specifically in schools and upskilling them. So that we have some resources already. There is a resource around autism and mental health, but certainly happy to look into that. Charlotte, if you want to drop us an email, we can certainly check in with colleagues about what else is available. Okay, and then Kim, would love to deliver specific sessions. Should I start with the Mind website? Yes, Kim, that would be great. Actually, have a look at where you are in the country, see who your local Mind is. If not, get in touch with us at sport@mind.org.uk, and we can see if we're delivering a sports project with the local Mind. So we've just funded a number of local Minds through Sport England to deliver programmes. And if not, we can probably help make an introduction. We may know someone. Again, every local Mind's different. Some are tiny, some are sort of large charities themselves. A question about, are children with special educational needs likely to suffer, more likely to suffer mental health issues? There has been some research around certain impairments. So we talked already about autism. May be more likely to develop sort of common mental health problems like anxiety and depression, also deaf children as well, so thinking about the social isolation challenges as well. So many of the other charities do deliver programmes around this. So I know certainly the National Deaf Children's Society, for example, has an emotional health and wellbeing programme, because they're very aware of the challenges, and obviously they're then experts in the primary condition, the deafness as well. So yes, it can be more common because of the extra barriers that people face as well.